And hello to everyone. Thank you so much for making it to our first ISL match analysis. And first of all, we have here Martin Truijens from the New York Breakers, James Gibson from the Energy Standard team, Jonty Skinner from the Cali Condors, and David Marsh from the LA Current team. And first of all, David, Jonty, James, Martin, thank you for so much for making this.
No, you're welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
And just to begin this sort of match analysis, a couple of words from each of you on what this match actually meant for you in the broad scheme of things. Like, did you treat the first match seriously? Did you have any expectations set for it? Maybe start with Martin.
Well, yeah, did we treat it seriously? We were not in a position to do it otherwise, I think. I was new to this whole game. Saw it last year from home, actually, from internet most of the time. But it was a blast for me to be part of it. I really enjoyed it, and I was happy to see a little bit of a different New York Breaker team, I think, than last year, at least based on the stories I heard. I think the team stood up over the 6 weeks and did the best they could. And well, we're talking now to 3 of the 4 finalists. So that was basically how I started the competition with my team. The first match was actually against these 3. So yeah, that was kind of the level we had to start with. And yeah, like I said, I think we had a pretty nice ride. I'm pretty proud of the team where they came from, and made it in the end to the semis. So yeah, was not bad.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you. James, what about for you? What does this match actually mean? Did you guys have any expectations set in place? I mean, we had Cali Condors, LA Current, New York Breakers, of course, and you guys, Energy Standard. I mean, this is a big match. What was your expectations and sort of coming into this match?
Yeah, we had very high expectations. Like, we knew Cali and LA especially were going to be very strong this year. You can always tell by the rosters and the lineups. And just really 2020 was a tough year for everyone. So there's a lot of apprehension within the group and the squad. We had people, like some people hadn't even been training for 2 weeks prior to ISL because they didn't have access to pools. And so it was quite interesting, though. So we did take the match seriously, and we hadn't actually lost a match at all in the history of ISL until the first one. And what really struck me was a lot of the American guys really showed up, like Dave Durden's guys out of Cal, Tom Shields, Ryan Murphy. You know, they gave us some speeches beforehand that this was just a training preparation, but they really, really showed up in fantastic shape right from the word go. Obviously, also Olivier Smoliga and a lot of the Cali guys really got a lot better. But you know, from last year when we went into Indianapolis, some of the American teams were a little bit more subdued, just because their guys normally traditionally train they race in very heavy loads in this period. But no, this year they showed up and they took it very, very seriously right from the word go. But we were serious, and we underestimated the power of the jackpot rule, and that took us a while to get our heads around. Like, it was a total game changer to the ISL this year, and we've done a lot of the maths based on last year's points, this year's points, and the sport actually totally changed. It shifted more towards these real standout performers in individual races. The relays didn't mean as much as what they have done in previous years, but we were disappointed to not to lose, to have our first loss. But that all credit to the American teams that they really showed up and they meant business.
Thank you, James. And jumping a little bit ahead of ourselves, but you guys still did some damage on these relays.
Yeah, no, we've always traditionally been strong, and I was a little bit of a hangover from last year, to be honest, Ivan. Like, we always targeted the relay, strength and depth, and really bringing home those double points. But the double points weren't as significant as what they had been in previous years. Like, I think we just got to use the example of the final, Caleb in the in the 100 medley, scoring 30 points. That was a total game changer. I'm quoting Bernie, the commentator's words. It just keeps coming back into me as I keep hearing it. Sends shivers down my spine every time I watch those. Of course. Those repeats. But no, the jackpot was a big change, and it's something we're gonna have to look at when we start recruiting for season 3. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, James.
And
Jonty.
Go ahead, Ivan.
Go ahead, Bruno.
Okay, thank you. And Jonty, James mentioned the jackpot rule. Did you really think prior to the first match that it was going to benefit a lot of the Cali Condors?
I agree with James. I mean, I'll answer some of the things. I think Dave probably thinks the same way, but the Americans had been out of competition for so long. Many of them were just actually really hungry for it. And oddly enough, I don't know what crowd this is going towards, but Caleb really, in our last team meeting after the final, mentioned very strongly that it was something that he was really looking forward to racing again because it had been so long. And I think there was enough of an apprehensive state in the kids on the team because they hadn't raced so long. They got a little more nervous. They had a little more energy. There's a little more focus on getting themselves ready to be ready that first meet. And I think that's what we saw. And I think that sort of propagated this effort and intensity in that first match, where some of those kids on the Cali team really didn't come back to some of those times until well into the season, really semifinals and even some of them, even the finals. And again, like I said, I mean, we traveled, most of the kids have traveled from the USA across the continents. They had a time change. We had 4 days before the first match. Trying to do anything significantly hard in that time period wasn't easy to do. So there was a little bit of resting, although not necessarily. I mean, I watched a kid do a 6,500 meter workout the day of the freaking meet, but
Are we talking about Haley Flickinger?
Yes. So, there was this level of apprehension that I think contributed to the performance, and I think in a very good way. And I tried really hard in sort of managing them to put them into an environment where just go have fun. Just go out there and have a blast today and just enjoy yourselves. And then the sidebar of that is, I'm the kind of guy, I never run watches. I don't have stopwatches in my hand. I like to watch people swim, and then I like to watch their faces when they finish because I want to see their reaction, what their really visceral reaction is to what they do. And kind of look at that and study that because to me that's a good information. And then I'd maybe from there go to look at the times, which sometimes I was a little late because some of those times disappeared. But I found myself after, I don't know what the first jackpot race that we caught, there was maybe the 200 IM with Medley Margalis. I kind of jackpotted 10 points and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, this jackpot thing is really serious. We can really get some serious points on it. So then I found myself actually watching these kids and then pretty soon up there looking at what came up on the jackpot board. So I don't think any of us were really ready for what it was going to do. And to be honest with you, I don't think anyone even imagined what Caleb would do to the 100 IM in that semifinal, which he just basically destroyed the LA Current team in one race and then did the same thing, came back and did the same thing in the finals. And even having a discussion with him before the second day of the finals, my inclination was to go to him and say, coast the 100 free, crush the 100 IM because that's going to be the deal breaker, the back breaker, and all those things. But he's like, no, coach, I'm going hard on everything. But I think subconsciously he knew the same things. I don't think he went after the 100 free to the level that he might have under different circumstances. I think subconsciously he knew the 100 IM was the absolute deal breaker. And if he put it down and he laid it down the way he could, and he did, I mean, that was 49.2, that's stupid, ridiculous. That just crushed everything. I mean, so that jackpot, introduction of the jackpots changed the landscape absolutely completely. And, like James said, I mean, it's, I know we're kind of moving towards different rules and different scenarios as far as team makeup and stuff like that are concerned. But man, every team needs at least one person, one or two or three or four people that can jackpot events. I mean, if you don't have that out there, then you're just not going to be the short end of the stick all the time.
100%. Yeah, fully agreed. And it seemed like these jackpot rules also played a big role in the LA Current game as well. Thank you so much, Jonty. David, maybe a couple of words from you before we start this match analysis, what this match actually meant for you, and what are the expectations you set in front of yourself?
really didn't have expectations. Like Jonty just said, I think the biggest thing was, and I emphasized this in the first team meeting we had, which is just pause for a second and experience this with a grateful heart, because the fact that we're getting to create this bubble, and in the beginning of this, we didn't know if the bubble would work. So it was even tenuous walking into the bubble that, is this really going to work? We didn't know it would work. And I said, just try to enjoy one meet after another, because honestly, had the bubble blown up, this thing would have been ended, especially with how the numbers are going in Hungary at the same time. Combine that, if the athletes hadn't been good for the bubble, if the people involved hadn't been disciplined about how they went about it, it could have stopped at any week. So to some degree, what I said in the first meet was let's go after each meet. We didn't have a good enough team with our roster. It was a good team, but certainly we felt like Cali Condors had the most thorough roster. Even when they lost Margalis, they had an outstanding squad. And your standard of course is always amazing. And with London Roar losing the Australians, they became a little bit weaker, but still very, very strong. So we felt from the beginning that we were going to be in a battle with Tokyo, with the new Toronto team that looked really strong. And you're right, the breakers, I think even with people like Abby Wood coming alive, I would say so I think she came sort of from nowhere, at least I didn't know her name before this meet. And so we had some people like that just sort of popped at this meet. So I think the biggest thing we started with the team concept was just to go into this, not assuming we're going to have another meet, and just appreciate it one at a time. And like Jonty said, I think we jumped out there in this first meet and swam pretty darn well, and then I think settled in a little bit, and then took it sort of step by step. But I had sort of my own little internal experiment, because I had 14 different swimmers on different teams throughout the league that trained with me here in San Diego. And normally I would have trained right through this time of the year. I maybe would let them shave for the last meet and sort of rest for the last meet. But given that they hadn't raced at all, they certainly hadn't faced any pressure or any racing that would create, the feeling that you're going to have at the Olympic trials, the Olympic Games, the chance to just put it on the line for these 6 weeks, I assume would be worth it. So we really reframed this event from a chance to go and taper for one meet toward the end to a racing camp, where we would basically race and adjust, race and adjust, race and adjust. So a big difference this year, I believe, with a lot of the American swimmers was a lot more of the American swimmers shaved at the beginning, at least a lot of the LA Current swimmers, not all, but certainly the group I had, and most of the other Americans shaved from the very, very first meet, and then, made adjustments as they went along during the meet. So I think that's why you saw this meet pretty exciting. Although, if you look at the times, the whole league got so much faster in 6 weeks. There was a combination of people racing into shape, and there was people who stayed in pretty heavy training until the end. And to be honest with you, that was part of the psychology of this whole thing, was so you sort of saw and heard who was working, you saw and heard who was sort of laying low. There was some, things cast across the dining hall at teams they supposed were taking it, resting the whole series, as opposed to those who are training all the way through. But I think at the end of the day, that was part of the fun of this, is that we got a chance to see athletes in all kinds of different conditions and all kinds of different moments. And then coaches, we had to make some, we had some wake-up calls and some adjustments. I'm looking at the very first event of this meet. I know we'll get to this, but I didn't even have Beryl entered in the 100 butterfly. We took 7th and 8th in the 100 fly. So
yes, we want to talk about this very bad.
Yeah,
yes,
that's brilliant coaching. So a lot of mess ups like that, and we didn't know who we had on relays, so we obviously made some relay mistakes in terms of how splits ended up, and we really didn't even have time to look at how they were doing in the water, because by the time they got off the plane, all you were trying to do at that point is recover from the flight and not get their system beat up before the meet started. So really there wasn't even time from the time they arrived till the first meet to actually see them do much hard. So I had really, other than them just telling me what they thought they could do, had no idea what might be the reality. Most did what they sort of assumed they were going to do, but certainly some people were off and some people were more on, I think, than they even thought they would be.
Thank you, David. Yeah, that makes total sense. And yeah, you already started talking about this women's 100 meters butterfly, and I think we can hop right into it. So the women's 100 meters butterfly, for the LA Current, you guys had Stewart and McLaughlin. Energy Standard had Sjöström and Skurdai. The New York Breakers had Ottesen and Surkova. And the Cali Condors had Dahlia and Brown. And just to start things off, I mean, David, you already touched base upon this, but I mean, Stewart and McLaughlin versus, I mean, the A team you had for this event, I feel like by the end of the competition was Gustadella and Tetzlaff. And sort of, how did you end up with McLaughlin and Stewart in this event, and why not Beryl or Ali? Is it just because you haven't seen them in the water yet, or? Sorry, David, I believe you're muted.
So B dominated the backstrokes last year, and I think had she raced a lot more backstrokes, she would have been quite a bit faster by the end of the backstrokes. But as it turned out, she had done a little bit more training for the hundreds than she had last year coming into this meet. The first meet we were in setting up the lineup, Kendall and Katie. Kendall last year off her results was regularly 56s. We did not assume we could beat Sarah, so you're sort of not swimming necessarily for first place. Again, not a good choice by me. But and then Katie was a bit of an X factor because she just come off some injuries and things. But she had. We felt like last year we didn't give her a chance in the 100 fly, and she feels like it's her best event. Because one thing you do try to do is listen to the athletes, especially in these early matches when you do want their input. And I know that Katie wanted a shot at a 100 fly, and this was her chance to get in there. And actually, to be honest with you, 57.9, it wasn't a terrible swim, but obviously compared to the field, it wasn't good. We didn't get jackpotted, so I guess to some degree, that was the silver lining. But yeah, Ali Tetzlaff, who had been training at NC State lately, really came in a different level swimmer than she was last year. Last year, she was really a relay-only sort of auxiliary swimmer. This year, she came in, I think, with much more confidence and much more swagger, and sort of earned her way into the as a key part of the overall program. And B, we've discovered that she could do the 100 fly, and she I will say this about B: she any event we put her in, she was willing to do, and she didn't say no to any event. And so we were just trying to figure out where to get the most out of her performances. And so we thought, perhaps saving her to a little bit later in the lineup and using her a little more in the back end heavy might help us perform a little bit better. But to some degree in this first meet, we were also searching for what the sort of the personality and the personnel makeup of our team would be to try to understand for the future matches, because we in reality we're thinking there's a pretty good chance we were going to be third in this, and knew that we had some other matches where we'd have a chance to accumulate a lot more points. So we did understand that this meet might be one of the ones we had to gain some knowledge, especially early on like this.
Thank you, David. James, what about for you? I mean, you have Sjöström and Skurdai, and that obviously paid off. 16 points going the way of Energy Standard in this 100 meters butterfly. But the big question is, did you consider Madeline Banage for this at all? I mean, we spoke before about saving up athletes as much as possible for the semifinal and final. And did you have any considerations on replacing maybe Sarah, maybe Anastasia with Madeline there for this match?
Wow, Maddie, what a fantastic addition to our group. She was our last pick going into ISL. When we made contact with Maddie before the ISL, she tried to finding a team, but unsuccessfully. So it was just due to a video that was posted on the internet. We saw her swim, and I was like, right, Tom, let's get hold of this girl. She looks fantastic. Her underwater kick looks incredible. We were shocked that none of the US teams had picked her up. So no, when we came in, Maddie was, her best times were way off Sarah and Anastasia. So for us, it was very simple. If we're just talking about this match, it was a simple selection, having Sarah and Anastasia come in. They went 1-2. That was what we thought would happen. That's what did happen. We expected Kelsey to be a little bit stronger, but like we touched on earlier, some of the Americans were in heavy work. She was clearly arrived fatigued, and she got very fresh as she went through. But no, Maddie really was one of our standout performers. Just finishing off with an American record in her last race. But she took her opportunity. Sarah had a back injury following this match, and it was a simple niggle come after a day off, actually, just getting out of bed in the morning, just had a bit of a back spasm. So it didn't come after a training session or anything like that. And then Maddie came in for Sarah as the meets went on, and she really did seize her opportunity with two hands, and then became quite an integral part of our group. She split 54 point on 100 fly in the last race, and like I said, broke the American record. But no, my plan was just to go through, was to alternate a few swimmers, rest a few swimmers. But obviously at the first match, you want to start off strong, and just watching by the video there, 1-2. Unfortunately, after that race, it went a little bit sideways past day.
Yeah, but that was an excellent start, and thank you, James.
And Jonty, for example, you had Kelsey Dahlia and Erica Brown, American record holders in short course meters and short course yards. How confident were you leading into that 100 fly, and how shocked or surprised were you with the result at the end with that third and fourth place finish?
To be honest with you, you don't know. I mean, no one knows. No one could really, the expectations on it were just simply, I think Dave and a lot of people, just let's watch them race, see where they are. I mean, Dave Marsh knows this. Erica Brown is this diminutive kid that has done some pretty amazing things in short course yards, and even translated quite a bit of that in the year 2019 into long course meters. So I was actually my anticipation to watch her swim was quite peaked, to be honest with you. I thought that maybe in this first race, when no one really knew her, she could sort of surprise people, but that didn't happen that way. I mean, I think she got way too tight for this first event. It got to her more than it probably needed to mentally, and I don't think she didn't have a really good race at all. She got really tight. Fly was very stilted in the race. She was very mechanical in the race. And to be honest with you, I took her out of fly events almost completely after the second match, and just raced her in backstroke and freestyle. And then she didn't swim fly again until the finals. So, and that was primarily because she just, we had to do quite a lot of technical work in the pool, working on her technique and stuff like that. But to be honest with you, I think if Erica Brown was on, and she wasn't really at this competition, we'd have seen a much, much different result from that match. Kelsey was just going through training issues like a lot of kids. She didn't have any really good training background. She was training in some rinky-dink little place that had no starting blocks and very little access to really good training. And I think she was one of those athletes that when she came in and started training long course meters, and then got some good training in long course meters, she got better and better as the competitions went on. And she's also a very information-based, what I call an information-based swimmer. She really wants to know in her mind that she's ready to go. I think when she has that level of confidence, then she's good, and she can smile and enjoy it. And I don't know that confidence level was necessarily there for match number one. And so it set this level of trepidation that I think impacted that performance on that day. And it carried over, that sort of hangover carried over a couple matches. And then by the time we got around to semifinals, it was finally where she was able to kind of break out and do some things that I thought really made her more Kelsey'd out.
Thank you, Jonty. And a question for you, Martin. This was an excellent opener 50 for Irina Surkova. This is evident from this footage of the full 100 fly. Did you expect the great things that were to come her way in the 50 fly following this? Or were you still kind of maybe on the edge with Irina Surkova? She's kind of a new name in the world of swimming.
Well, to be honest, I think Dave mentioned it already a little bit for me in particular, because at the moment ISL started, I was not training a group of swimmers myself. So basically 90% of all the information I had on my swimmers was based on numbers. So just how they were ranked in the world, and that's how we recruited most of them. And yeah, of course, I knew Arena, her personal best times, but I had no clue in what kind of shape anybody was there. So coming out of the flight, coming out of God knows what kind of training, I basically based the first lineup mostly on times, on their ranking before they entered the meet. And some of what I observed or little incidents that happened in the days before, like people not feeling great or really being out of shape, you could kind of notice that. But other than that, we just ran with the numbers basically, and that's why we started with Arena and Jeanette. And yeah, I think Arena showed already in the first match, but every match that came, and I think she was really one of those girls who really embraced the competition, embraced the opportunity of ISL, getting better each competition in most of the things she was swimming. And actually, she in the end ended up doing way more than we anticipated. Because of somebody getting sick, I had to put her in 100 backstroke, and she did quite okay. She did a 50 backstroke. She did 100 free, 50 free, 50 fly, 100 fly, all the relays. She did a lot of swims. So Arena became in the end quite an important swimmer on our team, definitely.
Thank you, Martin. I don't know if you knew, but she actually started with backstroke. So
well, that's
good transition.
That's good that I know.
But with that being said, let's move to the men's 100 meters butterfly. So for the LA Current, you guys have Tom Shields and Maxim Rooney racing for you guys. The Energy Standard had Chad Leclerc and Zir Gregor. The Cali Condors have Caleb Dressel and Marcin Cieslak. And the New York Breakers had Litchfield and Switkowski. And sort of my first question to you guys is for the LA Current. I mean, that was an excellent opener 50 for Maxim Rooney. Any considerations on old David of putting him in this 50 fly after this one fly performance?
Yes, but again, we were trying to see what we had, and we assumed he was going to be valuable on the 100 freestyle and the relays. And as it turned out, for both the free relay and the medley relay, he was pretty key. So we didn't want to add any more load to it. And at that point, I think who did I put in for that one? The 50 fly. Where is it?
You had Dylan Carter and Tom Shields.
Yeah, so Dylan trains with me in San Diego, and he has one of the fastest splits ever in a 50 fly in the medley relay in the NCAA program, and was swimming very well. He ended up swimming, very well in certain matches, but didn't have particularly a super fast fly there. But at the end of the day, we thought Tom would be our fastest 50 flyer anyway, and as it turned out, that's what most of the time played out, except in the very last match, I actually threw Ryan Murphy into that 50 fly, and I think he discovered a new event maybe to play with for the future. But to get back to this match, and I'll just jump right into Tom, I'd say one of the interesting things in this match overall, and I'm sure we don't have time to dissect every single race like we just dissected the women's 100 fly. We'll be on for a long, long time. But I would say a big theme was the outside lanes were preferred. And it was a bumpy pool with only one lane line in and flat walls. So when you were in the outside lane, you wanted to take advantage of it and generally get your better swimmer in the lane 1 or 8. And certainly that's why Tom Shields was in lane 1 in that race. And I think to some degree, him able to just focus on his own swim and not think about Caleb or anybody else, I think that actually helped him in that first race. Tom swims the race about 1,000 times in his head before he swims. He's always thinking, he's very analytical and always processing. And so when he swims a little bit more natural and lets it go, he swims quite a bit better. Tom arrived into this ISL probably 20, 25 pounds less than last time. And so relying on a little bit more power rather than buoyancy, I guess, and shall we say. And so he arrived in good shape. And, there's nobody that looks forward to short course meters more than Tom Shields. He loves this venue. I mean, I think if you made him pick between the 50, you can swim 50-meter races or 25-meter races, he would absolutely pick 25-meter races for the rest of his career. And so the ISL is a love of his, and I know he's very proud to be one of the spokesperson people from the ISL. And I would say getting that first win in that first race, I think meant a lot to him. Maxine, as it turned out, ended up being his best 100 fly of the whole ISL competition. I can't explain that because the guy works very hard at his sort of details, but his freestyle certainly was strong throughout the ISL.
Thank you, David. And of course, I mean, Tom beating Caleb was probably very significant for Tom. Did he have any like overwhelming emotional expression after the race, or was he the typical Tom? Oh yeah, that was good, you know?
No, after every race he apologizes. He says, "I wish I should have worked the second 50 faster. I should have worked the last. I shouldn't have breathed the last stroke coming in the wall." So he always has something that he could have done better immediately, which is, I think, not ideal. If any young kids are watching this, first thing you want to do is pat yourself on the back, give yourself a congratulations, and reinforce what you did well. And Tom, I'd say, has done that better than he did last year. But at the same time, he knew it was going to be lots of races between he and Chad, and the butterfly field was stacked, and he knew he didn't want to. Nobody really wants to show their hand in the first match that they're too excited, because they know that you're only going to give more fire to the people you're competing against later. And so they were playing poker in one of the back rooms with the boys, and I think there was some poker going on at the pool too after races. So that's part of what was fun, and I'm not sure the cameras were able to capture that part of the event. You think you need to be there to see that.
We have some of it.
But it's nice. It's nice to see the poker being played by the athletes in this setup, knowing that we had 6 weeks to compete against each other, and you didn't want to give anybody any extra fire.
Thank you, David. It makes total sense. James, a question to you. I mean, a 49.97 from Chad. Was this expected from you at this point, and were you concerned at all at him getting fourth?
To be honest, I was just happy to see anything under 50. I know we're supposed to talk about the process and not be outcome driven, and all of this rubbish that seems to be the fashion at the minute. But no, just from where Chad had been and where he was coming, like in South Africa, he had a very hard lockdown. I'd only had him for 4 weeks in Turkey from March. He was actually pretty solid, and it was actually interesting. Just gonna piggyback onto the back of what David was saying there. Like, everyone was saying to me, "Oh, big shock, Tom Shields winning the 100 fly." Like, absolutely not. Like, we saw him when he walked into the arena, and the first first few training sessions, and he was looking a lot leaner than we've seen him before. We know Tom is class. We know he's got skills. So it wasn't a big surprise for us that he turned over Caleb and Chad in that first match. And really from Chad's point of view, he just built and built and built. He built in the poker as well as the swimming pool. And in fact, at one point, Tom said he had to remove himself from the poker because he couldn't sleep, David. So that's probably where he dropped all that time in the finals. But no, the boys, they got a great competitive streak in all of them. They all want to win, and it's fantastic to watch Caleb, Tom, Maxim, Chad, all the guys going head to head more often, and it drags the best out of them all. And so even Chad had a very, very sort of, let's call it, checkered preparation for this competition. You can still drag out a sub 50 point because he's a competitor. And there was no excuses afterwards. He just got out, said, "Sorry, coach, I'm not good enough. I wasn't good enough. We've got to do some work these 2 weeks," because we had 2 weeks off afterwards. And it was just such a professional way of looking at where he was at. There was no hats being thrown around, no excuses. It was just like, we've just got to get better. But, I can get these guys in the end. And that's really how Chad approached the next 6 weeks. And he finished off 0.3 or so off his best time ever after this year. So he really strung together a good sequence of training, good sequence of meets, and we're actually really pleased how we developed.
Yeah,
thank you.
And talking about the improvement of the swimmers, Jonty Dressel swam here at 49.62, and in the final, of course, he destroyed the world record, 47.7. Why do you think, of course, the 100 IM, it was an event where Caleb improved a lot as well, but the 100 fly, almost 2 seconds. Why do you think this happened? Maybe adapting to the short course mirrors version coming from Florida, or why do you think we saw a huge improvement from Caleb?
I mean, he was just tired when he got there. I mean, and he trained pretty hard. He was one of those guys that trained pretty hard the 3 or 4 days in the interim before that match. His execution on his transitions was pretty woeful. You know, when we looked at the film, they weren't really good. I mean, he just wasn't match ready for the first race. I mean, every race he swam after that, like day 2, he was much better than day 1 in that match. And that I just attribute to the fact that he just didn't have a lot of sort of racing stuff in conjunction with just being tired. You know, he was pretty pissed off the end of the first day because he just didn't have a whole lot of success that first day. But he's not the kind of guy. I mean, he's the kind of guy who says, yeah, okay, finish your race. You don't do well. You got 3 minutes to have a little personal pity party. And after that, move on, you know, just which is exactly what he did. And, you know, I just attributed, it didn't bother me because I knew I'd seen what he'd done. And I knew when he got some rest, he was going to be out of control. And then, like you said, the 2-second drop in that event to the finals was more a reflection of the fact he actually got some rest. It was the first race of a 2-day event. You guys know how many times Dressel swims in 2 days. It's a ton. So he was the freshest in that final to get that kind of 100-fly result. So that's why we had that massive jump in terms of time, or drop in terms of time.
Yeah, thank you very much. And
thank you, Jonty.
For the breakers, we had Joe Litchfield, who was used a lot here in this 100-fly. He also is a very good backstroker. Is this the reason why we saw Joe swimming a lot of butterfly in the ISL?
Well, for us, we could also have put, for example, Michael Andrew in, but the nature of the game and the rules of the game is that you can only put 12 individuals in, right? So you have to make some choices, and I think Joe proved not only with his 100-fly, but with many of his races, the 200 IM, the 100 IM, and the 50s he did, that he was in a pretty good shape. So I think he was a good pick within the rules of the games to swim this event. I think he proved that.
Thank you, Martin. And with that, let's move to the men's 200-meter backstroke, if that's okay with you guys. That was a field full of stars. I mean, the LA Current, you guys had Brian Murphy and Jacob Heitman, Rilov and Kolesnikov for the energy standard. For the Cali Condors, you guys had Radoslav Kavecki and Coleman Stewart. And for the New York Breakers, Adam Telegdi and Jakub Skierka. And sort of the big elephant in the room is probably for you, Jonty. Did you expect Radoslav upsetting Murph with a 148.5? And sort of that was a stunning performance, wasn't it?
Well, it was, you know, and I didn't know Ratty at all. I called him Ratty. Trying to pronounce his name, I just said, Ratty, you're going to be Ratty for the 6 weeks I'm here. So, and I think he even started calling himself Ratty after a while. But, you know, I knew the Polish kids had been training in different environments, and they were prepared a little differently for this. They all pretty much jumped up and shaved the first match, whereas pretty much all the other kids on the team didn't wait for their shaves towards the end. They saved them to the finals. So he was ready to go. And again, he came from that side of the world where he didn't have much time change. He had an hour flight into the competition. I think, again, he was one of these kids that were really peaked and ready to go. He swam that race a lot more aggressively on the front half than any race he swam after that point in time. And I just think tactically, you know, he was so amped up. You got the result that you got, which is sort of beyond what's maybe some of the expectations were. But I mean, okay, so Ratty's 30, he's getting a little long in his years with regard to being a performer, but he's still great in the short pool because he's got fantastic underwaters and he uses them to his advantage. And to be honest with you, even though he's racing another guy that was really good underwater and can use underwaters to his advantage, I'm not sure that Murph was as ready for this race as Ratty was in terms of the final outcome.
Thank you so much. And a question towards James for you. Sort of Rilov and Kolesnikov, you probably expected a lot of points coming from this race. And I mean, Rilov showed excellent shape, though he got third. I mean, of 149.48 coming off of quarantine, that's pretty damn good. But Clement on the other side, I mean, it seemed like Clement underperformed here quite a bit, especially considering his amazing shape at the end of competition. Were you ever thinking about sort of switching Clement out of the events that are going to follow this? Because this is just the start of the match. And I mean, you have the opportunity to swap Clement out, but he still ended up racing a lot of events this day. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, well, obviously with the first match, you just go with what your fastest team on paper is. And Klim had been in Turkey with Dimitri, and he was pretty beaten up. Like Klim was pretty tired when he came in. Obviously, there was no shave there. But, you know, there's always things you can look at. Like, do you rest him from the two to focus on the relays on the first day? But we're all in the big learning experience. So for the first match, we were just chucking everyone in to wherever they were seated their fastest. Obviously, we're a little bit, you know, I think it was 156. I think he was pretty tired. He was very tired, actually. But I want to talk about Evgeny Rilov. Like Evgeny was, we knew right from the word go that Evgeny was in fantastic shape, like 149. And he was swimming 6 kilometers a workout, just aerobics every day. He didn't stop. You know, this guy, you know, all the way through the whole 6 weeks. He surprised a few people in the final, but he didn't surprise us because he was working all the way, and he just saved his shave right up to that last minute. So we knew Evgeny would come good. We saw the Polish guys in Turkey as well. They were training there when we were there, and we knew they were getting ready and taking it very, very seriously. But this, again, it's the beautiful thing about the ISL. You know, everyone was approaching each meet slightly differently. Some people were shaving, some people were not shaving. So there's a real air of unpredictability going on. But no, we made some changes as we went. The biggest challenge for me around Clement was day two. Day two, you've got 100 free, 100 back, 100 medley. He's great at all three. So you can only swim one of those races really within 10 minutes. And I think every team had a similar issue trying to decide who do those races. But no, I wasn't too disappointed with the results the first time because I knew I knew the guys would come better later on as we went through the sequences.
Thank you, James. And David, any concerns at all from Murph after losing to Kavecki?
Oh, not at all. He's a seasoned champion, and I think adversity doesn't really faze him too much. The problem was that, you know, I sort of thought he could win it, so we went with Jacob as the second backstroker, just hoping he would get jackpotted into the proper point pool, but it didn't turn out that way. Then we gave Cali those points, and but that was the first event where we put somebody in working the jackpot numbers, hoping that the jackpot would play our way. And so, you know, good on Cali Condors for taking that one, because that's bonus points, because we did have some other people we could have used, but from being a coach in a league last year, you quickly realize there's people who can handle like one event after another, and there's some people that if you try to do that to them, they just get destroyed. And I think we're in a situation where we're trying to preserve some people in this first meet to set the tone in a real positive way, so they would have a good first meet experience and build their confidence up. And so knowing Jacob only had the 400 IM later on, we knew he could sort of get through and at least not lose the point for going too slow. But so I think Murph was fine. I think that he absolutely shook it off. He came home real well. He came in 27.5, which was a good last 50. So he knew he was strong. He sort of kicked himself in the head for not moving a little bit earlier, because his third 50 is only 28.1. So he just, you know, he learned, and he's, you know, this is one of those meets where we were learning.
Thank you, David. And with this being said, let's move to the men's 50-meter freestyle. Sorry, let's keep it a little bit shorter because it's going to take us hours. But the men's 50-meter freestyle, I mean, the LA Current, you guys had Glokomev and Carter. Energy Standard, you guys had Manadou and Proud. Cali Condors, Dressel and Justin Ress. And New York Breakers, you guys had Michael Andrew and Matthew Richards. And to start things off, I mean, this was a very, very fast swim. Flo out-touching Caleb, I believe, for the only time in the 50 free in this season. 20.6 from Flo. This was one of the fastest performances he's had all season. James, did you believe this was going to continue happening? And sort of another question for Ben. I mean, what kind of happened to Ben? And did you still had hopes that Ben is going to, I mean, increase his shape throughout this competition, and maybe we'll see him back at the 50?
Yeah, just on Ben, like he was one of those guys that arrived a little bit out of shape, and that showed the first match. But you know, he progressed as he went through. But with the rule of only having 12 individuals, it's very difficult to, you know, you need to fill the team, and with one person that has one race, it's hard to justify keeping that selection going. And you know, with Ben, we pulled him more into a relay only swimmer, and at the end he could split easy 46s, which is just what the relay teams needed to be successful. But at the start, you know, Flo had a good preparation. He had a good 5 weeks leading into it. He only had a 5-week preparation going in, but he doesn't take too much to get in shape. And to go 20.6, he was very consistent all the way through. 20.6, 20.5. Or 5.1 was his best performance, and at the time it was like 0.27 off the world record. So you know, he was very solid as he went through, but he didn't drop quite as much time as what we'd hoped. I think, you know, he's a big guy and needs a little bit more land work. There was obviously restrictions in how much training we could do and not do, but yeah, it was a good victory for him. So we were quite happy with those results.
Thank you, James. And a question towards Jonty. I mean, Dressel, 100 fly, 50 free. These are the two of his most significant signature events, in my opinion. Was he at all concerned that he ended up not winning any of them?
Well, you know, he hates to lose, just like any athlete hates to lose. But yeah, concerned? No. I mean, you know, he knew the level of training he was coming in with and the level of fatigue he was carrying into the meet. And as I said before, I think all the races that he swam his first day, if you look back, those are the slowest times he did of any match in any of the competitions. You know, he just got faster and faster. I'm not sure. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 events that he didn't progress in over the space of 6 competitions. I think that 1 or 2 events where he was a little bit slower than the match before. Otherwise, everything else went forward. And so, no, I don't think any concern whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, his biggest concern was he lost points for the team standing and nothing else.
Okay. Thank you, Jonty.
And a question just quickly for David. I mean, Christian Golomif swam very impressive during the entire season, especially this first match with a 21-1, and he had huge improvements during the season. Can you tell us a little bit about his training and how confident he was prior to this match?
Hold on. I see Jonty smiling there. Let me get this. Yeah, I see Jonty smiling because he worked with him for a lot of years. Christian's an interesting bird. He's a classic example of he just got sharper as the meets went through, as we went through the competitions. He was figuring things out the whole time. And actually, I was a little disappointed in 21-1. I thought he should be able to start at under 21 in the first one, but he doesn't have a particularly good start. He definitely doesn't have a particularly good turn, especially when you're in the same pool at the same time with Caleb and Flo. In particular, you know, Caleb's start and turn is the best in the world by far. And so it was one of the great things was the footage from that film, that overhead camera during the meet. It was just capturing all this incredible footage of these races. You know, we actually made some adjustments based on having that, you know, sort of conclusive view that, yes, Christian, you are losing a lot of speed on the start and you're losing a lot of speed on the turn. So we started, as the meets went on, I actually changed his dive to a much more shallow dive, not that different than I actually did with Anthony Irvin before the Olympics last time. Was just, you know, if you're not real good underwater, you don't kick real well underwater, it's almost like get up and get swimming, because that's Christian's best place, is to be up on top of the water and swimming. And his speed on top of the water is fine. It's great. But I was very pleased actually with his free relays, because he was able to come back and give us a couple of free relays. And he's one of those guys that does not like to double out of events. He would like to have a little tzatziki and a little bit of cappuccino, and go to the sauna for a little while between events and have plenty of time. But Unfortunately, the ISL doesn't afford you that. It doesn't afford you the Greek living pleasures. So you have to get back up and race. And he handled it pretty well. And so I was very pleased with how he went through the whole series, learning and learning and learning. And most important, actually, today was our first practice after ISL for the group that had trained there till the end. And he's actually here at the pool today. So that may be the biggest win of all, is he's here the first day of practice and we're off and running. So a lot of good stuff for Christian. And I anticipate him having a good long course season.
Thank you, David. And with this, let's hop to the men's 50-meter breaststroke, if that's fine with all of you. And the LA Current held Silva Franca and Will Lacone swimming for them, Ilya Shimanovic and Felipe Lima for the Energy Standard team, Michael Andrew and James Wilby for the New York Breakers, and Kevin Cortez and Marsh Cheslak for the Cali Condors. And sort of my first big question goes to Martin here. I mean, Andrew got fourth, but I mean, with an excellent time and an excellent performance. And sort of the same thing happened to him in the 50 free. And this seems to be the sort of pattern for him for the rest of this meet. Very confidently, third to fifth, somewhere in this range, but never sort of one or two. Did you ever consider resting him at all for like one event? But I know this is not really Michael Andrews' vibe, but any considerations at all regarding this?
Well, I think compared to last season, we already raced him quite a bit less. I mean, if we didn't put him in the 50s, that would not have made a lot of sense for the team. I mean, he is strong there. He was our best choice in most of those 50s. So getting him out of a 50, that would not have been very smart in terms of scoring any points. But I think, like some of the stories we heard before, Michael definitely did not come to ISL in a great shape. And then it depends a little bit on the background you have in terms of how much you're able to improve from racing. And how much your training background is. So, for example, like Jonty said, Caleb came to the ISL being quite tired from doing a lot of training, I assume. If you did not have that baggage with you, then there's not a lot to rest from. So then it's also a little bit harder to improve. So I think with Michael definitely got better just by racing, but he didn't have a lot to lean on to rest from. So then there's a limit to that. So he definitely got better just because of being sharper in the racing, but no massive drops.
Okay, thank you. And a question towards David for you. I mean, an excellent performance from Felipe, 26-27. But Will Lacone has been more of a 200 and maybe 100-meter breaststroke swimmer, but he's never really been notorious for his 50. Did you ever consider racing Andrew Saliskar in the men's 50 breaststroke?
We had thought about it. There was a conversation, but he won the 200 IM the race before, so I don't think that would have been a good move to try to jump out of that. And Will has had he's been under 23 for yards in a 50 breaststroke on the relay, so he has been fast in a 50 breast. He's certainly not in the league. I mean, we got to say the 50 breaststroke in this competition became a different event, depth-wise and quality. I mean, they're guys within inches of the world record. 25's like it's nothing anymore. So it's the 50 breaststroke went from being a good event to an amazing event. And it's not also nice to see the breaststrokers take it back over, because for a while there, the 50-meter breaststroke was really being won by the sprint freestylers who just had great pullouts and could sort of wiggle for enough distance to fake a 50. So breaststrokers have recaptured their event, fortunately, and taken it to another level. So good on the ISL for creating that environment that happened. For our team, one of the interesting things that your audience might be interested in is Felipe Franca wasn't confident in his English, so communication was very hard with him. And not that he needed a lot of coaching. He's a grown man and a very mature racer of this event. Also, it's funny, you look at him, you think this guy is just a nasty ass warrior. And yes, he's a warrior, but he's one of the most pleasant guys in the entire team. The guy is got a heart of gold. And I mean, I hate to use the word sweet, but the guy's really a sweet guy and is a tough guy in the water. And that 25.9 he ended up getting down to eventually in the series of meets was the first time he's been under 26 in 6 years. We talked about that through Google Translate on our phones, but yeah, some really cool things like that happened. And Willicone had his day in the 200 breaststrokes later on, but the 50 breaststroke we had one really one person, and really there wasn't a second good option for that race specifically throughout the meet. So, but honestly, in the ISL, if you have one strong swimmer, especially one that can potentially win, that's really what you're going to need going forward with a jackpot in place. You don't necessarily need two real strong swimmers.
Thank you so much. And a question towards James for you. I mean, 26 points going the way of Energy Standard. That is a lot. Did you expect any challenges throughout the season later on to rise for Felipe and Ilya? Or did you think that, all right, we got the 50 breaststroke in the bag now? I mean, obviously Adam wasn't there. I don't know if you were too familiar with Emre Saatçi at this point, but...
No, we expected, more challenges to come on as we went, but it was actually interesting about Emre. I got a nice text off my father of all people asking me why I didn't recruit the Turkish lad during one of the matches. I was like, that's a good question, Dad. Thanks a lot. No, but I want to echo the sentiments of David one more time. That event just jumped. I think it was the men's breaststroke skins, Ilya versus Emre in when we were up against Iron, and it was like 25-5 to start. The guys were 3/10 off the world record in the first round, but they maintained. That also made me think about breaststroke skins might be a little bit softer on the bodies than freestyle, which absolutely ravishes the big guys. But there was something in the breaststroke skins that made them keep going. And also Lily in the first match, she was 28.8. I think it was one of her fastest times was her last skin. So there's some interesting things with tactics going forward there. But no, we knew the challenges would come. We were obviously delighted whenever you go 1-2 and just seeing your boys being very strong straight out the box.
Thank you, James. And with this, let's move to the women's 50 meters backstroke. The LA Current, you guys had Beryl Gastadella and Ellie Duluth racing for you guys. Emily Seabaum and Georgia Davis for the Energy Standard. Waddell and Golding for the New York Breakers. And Smaliga and Sheridan Dressel for the Cali Condors. My first big question goes to you, James. Did you ever consider at this point putting Marie-Sophie Harvey in this race? And I mean, did you know about her dramatic improvement in the sprint events?
Oh, we have a history with Mary. We know she's strong, especially on underwater kick. But at the first meet, like I said earlier, she turned up. She was very deconditioned, and we actually had to do some of these last minute changes to pull her out on the first day of the 2 medley. But we knew Mary would come on strong. But we had a match later on where we could play around with things, so we just decided to put her in the 50 back, and she was about 2 100ths off the Canadian record. So that's why she kept her place in there and just freed up a little bit of space for Emily before the mixed relays. But I think Jonty's more. I think with Olivia's first race, I'm interested to hear from Jonty on that one. It's almost a world record.
Yes, Jonty, please. It's very interesting. She was 7 100ths away from the world record with a 25.74. I mean, did you expect her to beat the world record later on? And why was there no Beta Nelson in the 50 backstroke?
Well, just to deal with Smogs first, but to be honest with you, she wasn't really happy with the leg on the free relay, which is really what she started out with. And I think that kind of fueled a little bit what she did in the 50 back. I think she got a little angry. And then when you combine that with some of the just that nervousness that we had that very first match, I think it contributed to everything that kind of went with that. And the expectation after that was, well, this is just going to get better and better, and we're going to crush this by the end of the year, which didn't really happen. And I can't honestly give you an answer. You're going to have to ask Olivia to see if she could come up with an answer to that. But that first match certainly set the tone for her and got her fired up, and I think really gave her a good kind of entrance into the whole competition period, because any kind of event like that, when you perform like that, you just, everything beyond that is just confidence laden, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you can sort of maybe do no wrong, and I can't tell you how many times during some of those matches when we'd get through that. We'd go through either the series of events that she had that day, and she always had to follow that with the medley relay, and I'd be in her face saying, so-and-so took this off or took that off, and they're resting up so they can beat you here or beat you there. And I just got her stoked up and fired up to where she was just maybe put a little more effort into some of those things. But I just think that was just the nervous edge of a 50 in that first event, hit everything right and put down a time. As far as Beta was concerned, really she was a rookie in this, and I didn't want to overswim her in the first match. So I held back on some of the events I put her in, simply because I felt like to give her less swims the first meet was better. And as it turned out, she was a little nervous the first time around, much better the second, and then she pretty much had a takeover for Melanie as far as our main IMer after that, and didn't swim a whole lot of backstroke after that, except for the 200. But that was the main reason why she wasn't in that event.
Thank you, Jonty. And a question towards the Martin for you. Any considerations for Surkova at this point in this race, or maybe after this happened? Did you think, okay, I need to put someone else in this race, or were you, I don't know, what was your thought process?
Well, it's nice the way you put it. After this happened, those girls were not very fast at this event, that's for sure. And obviously, I started to think about what other options do I have, and Arena was certainly on my mind, but Arena had more to do, and that's a little bit the risk when you make a choice to put her in. How much is that gonna harm the next event? So at that point, I didn't do it yet. But we definitely made a lot of changes in the female backstroke throughout the season, just to try to find what was the optimal mix, basically. And it remained a little bit of a weak event, even though we did get better. And the most important thing for us is just to avoid as much as checkpoint points being taken away, basically. So yeah, no, it was definitely an eye opener for both the girls and for me and the other coaches. Like, okay, this is the starting level, how to progress from here. And that was partly in trying to improve those girls, but also partly to try to reconsider our options. And I think we did both.
Thank you, Martin. Yeah, 100%. You definitely tried out a lot of options in the season, and it looked like you nailed it down by the end of it. Yeah, 100%. And David, one more question for you. I mean, Beryl showed with this race that she's basically fast in all three strokes, right? The freestyle, butterfly, backstroke. Did you already see at this point the star she would become in this season of ISL?
We even tried her in breaststroke. We got that desperate. So actually, I would say, let me start with backstroke, since we're talking about. I would say she's disappointed in her backstroke performances. I think last year she actually swam faster than this year in the backstrokes. Seemed that she didn't have the confidence in the start. And if you don't have a good start against Olivia and the quality of the ladies that are doing that race, it's over. You can't mess around a 50 like that. But I think she was very happy with her fly and her freestyle, and she broke all kinds of French records. And I think B, coming off of last year, I think the ISL brought her out last year. I mean, she's a swimmer who hadn't had any. I mean, even in her years at Texas A&M, back in Marseille, France, she wasn't a swimmer that's popped out in front of the swimming world in any regard. But the difference with B is she sees herself there already. Like, she doesn't need other people to tell her she's there. She believes she's there. She talks like she's there. She walks like she's there. And eventually she's getting there. Now, I'm saying she's gotten there short course meters. She remains to be seen if she'll get there long course meters. But I think with the approach she's having, working with Jason there in College Station, the background with the experience of world-class swimmers that she had in Marseille when she was coached with James and Romy and the crew back in those years, are great formative years that set her standards very high. Those are the years where Marseille was the best team in Europe. And she was one of the young ones in the program at that point. And there's a lot to be said about a young person seeing what true excellence is and what true excellence takes. And if there's one thing I'm disappointed about with the ISL this year is that we didn't have kids in the bleachers getting that type of inspiration that they got last year in the ISL. But back to B, she's a very confident competitor when she's on the blocks. Now, until she gets to the blocks, a lot of times it's having to talk her into her confidence a little bit. But I think she knew she had done some great training. She knew she was much stronger than she was last year in the weight room. And so it was a matter of time before she would hit her flow. And isn't that odd how really the hundreds turned out to be better events, even more so than the 50s in this ISL. But sometimes hundreds come from a combination, not just endurance and training, but also that combination of being able to swim fast, but not be firing your muscles at 100%. And that's what she really learned how to do. She won a lot of those 100 races, the last 25, not the first 25.
That easy speed, huh? All right. Thank you, David. And with this being said, guys, I hope you're okay with us moving to day 2, straight into the women's 100-meter freestyle. For the LA Currents, you guys had Beryl Gastadella and Andy Mures, Sara Sjostrom and Shoban Hohe for the Energy Standard, Kasia Wasik and Daria Ustinova for the New York Breakers, and Natalie Hines and Erica Brown for the Cali Condors. And my first big question goes once again to David. And why is there no Abby Weitzel?
I'm looking back, trying to figure it out. No, that's okay. I got it. Give me a second here. I'm going to try to give you a good answer.
Well,
Abby's
I'll tell you right now.
52.6 on the medley relay. And then before that, she was 50. On the women's relay before that, I don't know. She wasn't firing the way that we know Abby can. I mean, my gosh, Abby showed up. I mean, Abby's going to be a star in this league. So, I mean, you can, even though she didn't necessarily blossom into what she probably could be, this league is really made for someone like her. We knew we needed her in the 100 IM. We were trying to keep her fresh for that 100 IM, which that was to me going to be a key event for her. And I think we put her in a skins breaststroke or something. We were definitely playing with how many races she had, and Andy had swum pretty well the day before. So as it turned out, I think she probably would have been good to put her in that 100 free, but she got her shot at a lot of them as the meets went on. And I would agree with you. I'd shake my head too, Yvonne, if I was the commentator too, especially knowing the background you have with her at Cal Berkeley and knowing how awesome she is in sprint freestyle. But we were all moving and learning during that time of the meet.
Fair enough. No, I was actually Abby's training partner for quite some time. Yeah, so Abby can definitely move in the sprint freestyle. But thank you. With this being said, a question to you, Martin. Was this at all unexpected from Kasia Wasik? I mean, 51.82. That is an excellent performance. I believe this was the Polish record at the time also.
Yeah, she set a Polish record several times during the whole ISL. Well, expected. Like I said before, it was hard to make any predictions. That Kasia was ready to go and was very eager to race, that was for sure. But based again on those 12 individuals you can put in, we had to make choices. So she actually did not swim in the first match, the 50 freestyle, which in the end, I would have loved to turn back because she did outstanding in the 50 freestyle as well. But yeah, we had a sickness. So I was actually able to make a change and put relay only swimmer Kasia in the 100 freestyle on day 2. So that was a sad thing that turned out to be a very good thing because she demolished the Polish record and really took the stage there and did what she loves to do, to race really hard. It's an excellent swimmer and basically in the second youth of her career, I would say.
Yeah, thank you. And talking about great performances, James, I mean, Chauvin was very regular during the entire season, and with this first match swimming a 51:38, which was a new Hong Kong record, an Asian record at the time. I mean, she was impressive. And Sarah as well. What can you tell us about that?
Well, we picked up Siobhan as one of our first recruits, and what an awesome job she did for us. We were very, very happy to have her swim on the team, and she brought some real strength in depth right from the 100 all the way through to the 400. So she's got immense versatility, and she was one of our standouts as we went. Now, obviously, Sarah was in there as well, going 1-2. I think we got 1-2 in that event. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think we did. Started off the second day very, very strong. Sarah's just awesome. She's a racer. That was their first of 5 events on that second day. And you'll see a bit later on, she got a bit tired as she went through, but she still gave it her all, and she actually finished off. It was a mixed relay. Sarah finished off with 0 breath down the last 25, and the logical reason behind it was she said it was wavy, and she said she didn't want to risk drinking water. That was the reason why she did it. But it's not interesting to get good insight from the athletes why they do things from time to time, and that was a good way for us to start day 2.
Thank you, James. And Jonty, another question for you. Any considerations of Schmidt and Smaliga for this event instead of maybe Brown, maybe Natalie Hines? I don't know.
Well, maybe if you changed the event order and you didn't put the 100, the 100 back like right behind it, it was kind of tough to do that, right? And
of course,
you make these decisions based on the athletes in your on your squad and what events they're geared for. We just didn't have, especially because some kids got sick in the middle, we didn't have that option to maybe put Smogs in there. So we always sort of let off on the relay to give her a flat start time just to see where she was and would she be competitive. And as it turned out, I mean, the LA Current duo just dominated that event all the way to the end, to where, we just didn't want to, as I think some people maybe did, put athletes in there that would be able to perform and get points, but not put our studs in there in a position where they wouldn't necessarily get any more points, and then sort of waste a swim. So it just didn't work out that she actually swam that event the entire period, mainly because of where the 100 back was, and then in part because of what the LA Current was doing with their squad.
Thank you, Jonty. And with this, let's hop to the men's 100-meter freestyle. The LA Current, you guys had Maxime Rooney and Christian Glaucomev. Energy Standard, you guys had Flo Manadou and Clement Kolesnikov. New York Breakers, you guys had Richards and Timmers. And Cali Condors, you guys had Dressel and Ress. And to start things off, I mean, James, Klim was looking a little bit off his game during this first match. Any considerations at all on replacing him with maybe Rilov, maybe someone else in this 100-meter freestyle?
No, Ivan, see, there was no choice in this. On day 2, the 100 free, the 100 back, and the 100 medley are all separated by 10 to 12 minutes. So you got to make a choice. You got 6 spots. You got to cover with 6 people, and we had to go with we had to put the people in we thought would deliver the best. And Klim didn't. He had a rough first day. But his freestyle wasn't too bad. Like Klim's good, but he can't go 100 free, 100 back, 100 medley, all back to back.
Yeah, makes total sense. Yeah.
That was just the reason for it. That was nothing else. We needed 2 guys to go in the race, and we decided to focus on Evgeny in the 100 back and Flo in the 100 free. And I'm not sure I can remember who did the 100 medley actually. I think Klim did 2. I'm trying to remember.
I'm gonna tell you right now. The 100 medley was done by. I'm not gonna tell you right now. Just a second. So the 100 meters individual medley was swam by. I will double check for you right now.
It was Clement Kolesnikov and Max Stupin in the first.
Yeah,
exactly.
So it's a bit of a dirty double, 100 free, 100 medley, and that for a big guy in that. in that short space of time. And then, like I said, we were just like the other guys, like Jonty, like Martin and Davey. We were just playing around with different formats, and we realised that that's something we should avoid going forward.
Okay, thank you, James. Martin, a question for you. No Michael Andrew. Any considerations of having him in there? Or did you save him up for the 100 meters individual medley? You thought he had a better shot?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Mike was also, I mean, 100 takes a lot out of him. So if you put a 100 freestyle like in like 20 minutes before 100 IM, that will definitely affect his 100 IM. And the 100 IM was an event where he could definitely score points for us. So we made that choice very deliberately, yes.
Thank you, Martin. And a question towards you, Jonty. I mean, an excellent performance from Caleb. We're not going to take it away from him. But with this being said, if you just compare this match with the final, I mean, and I know you've already touched base upon this a little bit, but the amount he dropped in the 100 meters individual medley and the 100 fly is just insane. It's about 2 seconds in each of these events. And then you look at the 100 meter freestyle, and he didn't really drop as much. It's really only 8/10. Sort of how, I mean, it's still a lot. It's still a lot, don't get me wrong. But when you compare it to 2 seconds, you can really see the difference. What would you attribute this to?
Well, you know, honestly, I think the world was maybe expecting something and maybe a little more in the final, to be honest with you. And I don't know if the conversations with Caleb kind of impacted that and his thinking. He's such a team guy. And he knew really early on how important those jackpots were. So it might have impacted what he could have done in the final. I don't know, can't say. But I do know he started out fairly well in that event because it was the second day and it was the first event the second day for him. And so he was, you know, he had this, like he raced 4 times the day before and it was a day of rest for him based on the amount of work he was doing. So we saw a little bit of that recovery and that kind of sting. You know, sometimes you like to put athletes through a bit of a stinger before they swim races to get them ready. And I think day 1 really got him ready for day 2. And so we saw probably a really good 100 day 2 in relation to some of the times he did day 1 was actually very good. And that was sort of a tribute to everything with regard to that period. I know there are probably other factors, but that was probably the combination of things that impacted that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And with this being said, let's move to the next event, the women's 100 meters individual medley. And this was a good one. Let me put it this way, because for the LA Current, you guys had Abby Weitzel and Anastasia Gorbenko. For Energy Standard, you had Sarah Sjostrom and Marie-Sophie Harvey. For the New York Breakers, you had Abby Wood and Renshaw. And for the Cali Condors, you guys had Margalis and Small. I mean, this is a stacked field. And with this being said, my first question goes towards you, David. Why was there no Beryl Gastadello? Was this because of the 100 meter freestyle? And did you envision Abby Weitzel as your main 100 meters IMer?
She had never done 100 IM before, that she told me. I mean, she knowing she had 3 good strokes, but we knew that Abby had done a lot of 100 IMs, at least in practice and in some of those meets, those unique meets they do at Cal. So we knew she had been,
of course, the king of the pool. Yeah,
there you go, the 51 or so there. Anastasia was a bit of a surprise. I actually didn't realize she'd be quite that fast at 100 IM. I like to try to, since I coach her, I generally like to have her think about the 400 IM a lot more than 100 IM at 17 years old. But that 100 IM, she likes it a lot now, even more now, unfortunately. So the answer to your question is why B wasn't in it, who turned out to be the best 100 IMer in the league. We didn't know she could do the 100 IM, and literally and then even after the first meet when we had Abby, I mean, we thought Abby could sort of manage this and she would get better and better because she hadn't done it very much. She was really slow on turns. And really the only reason we made the change was there was one of the meets, and I forget which one it was, but we just decided to give Abby the 100 free and be able to rest for her next event, which would have been the the mixed free relay, and then it had to do with the skin situation too. But anyway, there was a situation where we just decided, hey, let's give Abby some more rest. We knew we had a good one in Anastasia, and I literally just said to B, I said, B, do you want a shot at 100 IM? Because this is your chance right here. I got a little opening right now. If you want to do it, it's going to take you. You're going to have to do a dirty double, the 100 free, and then the 100 IM. And she was able to manage that really well. She says 100 IM doesn't take the energy out of her like 100 free does. And I think that makes some sense. Might be that mystery breaststroke that James was talking about earlier that we need to understand more in short course breaststroke. But she's able to come back and be pretty fresh when she mixes up her strokes front and back. And I have found that also, we didn't cover the mix, the medley relays from the day before. Mm-hmm. But when the athletes would switch from freestyle, let's say backstroke, I think that helped them stay fresher. And that medley relay ends up being the most important event by far of the entire competition. And so we were all learning about how the athletes would double out of different scenarios. And with B, that was her situation where if you change up her strokes, she feels a lot more fresh. So 100 IM is a natural, and fortunately we discovered it because it probably won her a good amount of prize money, and we won a lot of points off of discovering that. I would say almost accidentally.
Thank you, David. And that makes total sense.
Here we are seeing Mary-Sophie Harvey, but there's no Anastasia Shkurda and Martin Abby Wood. 58.49. That was impressive. What will you expect from her going into that 4 IM? Yeah.
Oh, well, we by day one, we knew she was in a good place, right? She swam big personal best times. I think ended up breaking a British record as well. So, what to expect? To expect another very good race. That's at least what I could expect. And in the 4 IM, I think already in the first match, she dropped, I think 3 seconds from her personal best time. And if you look at the whole ISL competition, she in the end dropped 6 seconds in total in her 400 IM. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Thank you, Martin. James, once again, I'm backing off Bruno. Why is there no Anastasia Shkurda? But the most important question for me, the elephant in the room, Marie-Sophie Harvey got so much better in the backstroke and in the fly, and not only sprint, by the way. She has a magnificent 2 fly as well now. What happened to her individual medley, and especially to the 100 meters individual medley? Why has it not been up with the progression?
Well, we actually swam Mary a bit later on in the 100 medley when she got a bit of fitness in her, and she was solid. She was 58 low, so it was very respectable time, and that came after a 200 butterfly. It was in there. It was just represented. The first match was just represented her form at that time. So we didn't panic, didn't press the alarm panic button on. We just, like I said, we just put her back to a bit of work for 2 weeks. We're very lucky. We had a block, and Mary was quite lucky as well. She could just do some good work, and we know with Mary, she responds to working out well, being in routine and pattern, and then she came good as we went.
Thank you so much, James. Yeah, this makes total sense to me. Jonty, a question to you. First of all, did you know how good Beta Nelson would be at this event following the season? Did you have any consideration of making her race the 100 meters individual medley?
No, actually, we were, with the proximity to the 100 back in the early part of it, it was hard to get her in there because she had to swim the 100 back. Mm-hmm. When she became the primary IMer, it was never a question at all. I actually watched her do a couple of IM workouts, and she really didn't have a weak stroke. She's really good. She's got one of those body shapes that travels through water very well. So she's very good underwater, effortlessly good underwater. And so, the 100 IM, 200 IM were events we really wanted to get her in. It was just figuring out a way to do it. And then when Melanie really got sick and then eventually left and went home, it just put her in that position where she had to race that event. And I think she raced it very well. And I think going forward with her in the league, I think she'll start to realize how important that event can be to her in the lineup, and maybe put more work, and Yuri, together with Yuri, will put some more work into getting better in that event as she goes forward.
Of course, I'm sure Yuri will take care of it. Knowing Yuri, yeah. By the way, Jonty, do you feel like did you miss a lot, Melanie, for the final? Did you really feel like you were lacking such a big component of your team, or that the rest of the team sort of was able to adjust to it?
No, we never concerned, never talked about it. I didn't ever, Jason handled a lot of stuff with regard to the athletes on that level. She was struggling with some things at the competition, though you wouldn't know it, she was. And
I believe we're getting freezes from Jonty, if this is not only me. Jonty, we can't quite hear you. All right. Well, with this being said, thank you. And let's move to the women's 50-meter skins. And it was breaststroke indeed. And it was Jonty who picked the breaststroke for the skins. Jonty, I don't know. Could you try speaking right now? Did you unfreeze?
It looks pretty frozen to me.
Okay, no worries.
Yes.
But the women's 50-meter breaststroke skins, I mean, for the LA Current, you guys had Sebastian and Weitzel. Energy Standard, you guys had Pilato and Clark. New York Breakers, you got Emily Escobedo and Saravasi. And Cali Condors, you guys had King and Hannes, of course. And James, my first question goes towards you. I mean, Benedetta Pilato, I mean, what a swimmer. I mean, especially at such a young age. But it seems like you had the trust in her when things rolled to the skins. But you actually didn't put her in the medley relay, neither the A or the B team. Why?
Well, Benny's she's 15 years old, and we knew we had to bring her in slowly. We didn't want to overexpose that. We knew her class. We knew she was great. We've seen her racing on the international scene for the last year. But it's just one thing with new athletes coming in. You don't want to overexpose them because you don't know everyone's shape. Like that first match, we didn't understand exactly where everyone is at. And the last thing you want to do is put a young athlete into a pressure cooker environment, and then especially if they're not in the greatest shape, that first meet could have really given her a really negative experience of the ISL, and that's not really what I wanted to do. Like I said, but fortunately, she came in and she was great right from the word go. And in hindsight, you look back at things and you make some decisions. But I was thinking more of an athlete well-being. Don't do things all at once. Build her in slowly. Don't overexpose her to an environment that is going to be different to what she's ever experienced before. But no, the skins, we had we obviously, after the way she raced Lily in the 50 individual, we had a lot of confidence that she'd get through we didn't know she'd make the final two, but we'd get her through into the final four, which we did, and we got Imogen and Benny in there quite comfortably. And then, obviously they just succumbed a little bit. Lily's 200 background and Molly's 200 background was a little bit more effective than our sprinters in the skins events. But Benny will grow over time and what outstanding performances for such a young lady.
Thank you, James. We 100% expect her to grow as a swimmer.
Yeah,
but
it will be amazing to see her.
Go ahead, Bruno.
Okay, Jonty, so you're back, right? I am. Yeah, great. So the women's skin, King and Hannes, every time that you select breaststroke for the skins races, they both made it to the final. Why? Well, only one's not. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I remember. Excuse me that time. But King and Hannes in this first match, they were impressive and dominant. And Lily King at the end, I mean, she was just crazy fast that last third 50. How was the competitive environment inside the team? And did you think that this helped the swimmers to develop a great competition at the end?
Well, I mean, James already alluded to the fact he was pretty impressed that Lily went 28.8 on that last 50, which is just a reflection of the way she trains more than anything, to be honest with you guys. And the fact that she actually traveled and we were sort of quarantined for that Monday, and then we had to sort of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then race. The workload that she did prior to that first match wasn't significant. And I think it kind of contributed to maybe some of the times we saw in that first match. After that first match, she got to training and she worked extremely hard. I think she maybe took maybe 2, maybe 3 days off between that day and the final, where she didn't train. She didn't go to the pool and train. And to be honest with you, between the match number 4 and semifinal number 1, those 4 days were hard. The 2 days between match number 3, match number 4, she was going full on, did 3 practices in that period. So to be honest with you, that sharpness in the skins event and that was really attributed to the fact that she was a little more rested maybe in that first match. She was until the last match. And then she's just a competitive. I mean, she is Lily King. She's she's just one of those kids that just lives to race and loves to race and loves it when there is a race. And I think she was really excited about racing Imogen. I can't pronounce her name super well, but you want those kind of people. She's kind of like, Beryl, probably the same way, in that just once they get there, they get the opportunity to get on the blocks and really get after it. There's very little that holds them back. And there was never, I picked the backstrokers at one meet as my skins option. And I might have picked the backstrokers at the next option I had, which was going to be in the semifinals. And I almost picked backstroke again at the semifinals, but it really, at that time, in a long conversation with Ray about where Lily was and what she could or couldn't do, we actually ended up staying with breaststroke as our option, skins option, and really to protect Beta a little more because she had such a much different load with the IM stuff going through the meets.
Thank you, Jonty. And
work at the end.
A question for you, David. I mean, Sebastian and Weitzel, and no Anastasia Gorbenko. How did you come up with this decision at this point? And were you ever considering Gorbenko in there? And I
was considering jumping in some myself. No, we didn't have speed in breaststroke. We thought, Abby swam on the medley relays in college, and so we're, at the level of the ISL competition. I mean, at 30 points, nothing, and I think Anastasia, as it turned out, could have gone 30-point low, but she had the 4 IM right before it, trying to keep her swimming that event as a primary event for her. But I'll say this: Julia set Argentine records and South American records almost every time she swam, and got jackpotted the majority of the time she swam. That's what this league's about here. This is professional swimming, and if you don't do the time, you don't get the points. And at first, you weren't getting the money either. Fortunately, they did fix that, but I think this was, it was painful for us in the women's breaststroke side that we weren't as competitive as we, last year we had a little bit better breaststroke crew. This year, we were, Kira and Julia were our main breaststrokers. And I think that's part of what you find out in the ISL. You can't have a big weakness. And even though Julia was swimming amazingly and improving and changing things in her technique and her pullouts and things like this, so she kept getting better and better, but it's just not the next level yet. And for Julia, her challenge will be to go and get that time even a little bit faster. The nice thing for an athlete like that now is that the Argentine record and the South American record isn't as big a deal as it probably used to be. Now it's world swimming that matters more. And I think that's some of the lessons of the people that sort of were consistently finishing 5th through 8th. It's like, you got to figure out a way to get faster if you want to be a factor in this league. And this is professional swimming. So it's not, going to necessarily feel good. You're not always going to get the best feedback from looking up to the timing system and seeing you got jackpotted. But most swimmers can do something about that by going back and working on things and getting back to work and doing the things it takes. There are great examples of, like I said, Ali Duluth and Ali Teslov. They were auxiliary relay swimmers last year in the league and not big players. And this year they jumped up to not the top level, but the next level. And that's available to everyone in the ISL league. And I think it's going to make them better, not just for the ISL, but also for their Olympic ambitions if they'll take that on as a challenge and move forward.
100%. And thank you so much, David. And with this, let's skip to the last event for today, the men's 50-meter skins backstroke. And guys, you had for the LA Current, Ryan Murphy and Tom Shields. For the Energy Standard, Yevgeny Rilov and Matt Grievers. For the New York Breakers, Litchfield and Andrew. And for the Cali Condors, Justin Reyes and Coleman Stewart. And my first question goes once again to you, David. I mean, how did you arrive with the decision of having backstroke for the skins, and were you considering any other strokes for this? Butterfly seemed like an option a little bit.
Yeah, there's a guy named Caleb Dressel in that event, and he's really good at coming back and going one after another. And now Tom was ready to go butterfly, and certainly let me know he would be happy and ready to go butterfly. He has been fast in backstroke before, and in the 50 back, we didn't have a clear second person. Certainly Dylan Carter developed into that as the sessions went on into our sort of a second 50 backstroker. But Ryan, we felt like his speed was good, and unfortunately at that point I couldn't have fathomed that he would have scored 50 some odd points. He jackpotted the whole thing except the first heat. And we weren't ready for that. One of the things I needed to be ready for was the mathematical equation of if he jackpots everything all the way, can we jump up? And I think it was Energy Standard. Can we jump up and try to make a run at them in this very last race? And we couldn't at that point. But the impact of the skins was never the same after you saw Lily and Ryan, what they did to those very first competitions. The next meet for everyone, the medley relay got full attention and full effort by everyone. Very, very few times was there any compromise of preparing for the medley if you had a chance to win that, to be able to select the skins. So had a good feeling about Ryan. We knew he'd get through the first round, and we felt like if he could get through the next that next round, he would be very good coming through. Fortunately, Rylov wasn't rested as much at that point, and he probably would have been much better in one of the later races had he got a chance at it. But we were pleased from then forward when we could pick backstroke as a skins event.
Thank you, David. And you guys have an amazing 50 backstroker in Dylan Carter. Why Tom Shields? Why not Dylan Carter?
Well, I addressed that a little bit already, but I would say the at that point in time, Dylan hadn't popped yet and didn't have as fast a 50 fly as I was expecting. So we went with Tom, just because of his underwater speed, and really it was a little bit of a Hail Mary. We did a lot of Hail Marys. There's several events where we didn't have any idea who to put in, and some of them paid off, like B's 100 IM, but some of them didn't. And Tom was, one of the first ones to say, we probably need to look for somebody else. But Tom's always a racer and has those great underwater, so I thought I'd give him a chance.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
And Martin, a question for you. It was amazing to see Joe getting into that final round. Were you surprised because of his result?
Well, I was surprised that all his points were stolen. That was for sure. And all his money at that point, like Dave just referred to. No, that was, I think, the eye-opener. I mean, the eye-opener in terms of what jackpot could do to this competition, for me at least, that one race made it very, very clear. Joe did an outstanding performance by getting into that final, obviously. That was really good to beat some of the other backstrokers he was competing against. Well, I'm not sure if we can say that was expected. So I think he really did well. He loved it. He loved to race every round, but he also was very, very disappointed afterwards to find out that everything was stolen from him. Yeah, so no, it was a great experience in all sense.
Wow, Martin. So he discovered that the points and the money would be stolen after he actually swam?
Well, the points we knew, obviously, but we didn't know that also at that point. I mean, I know that has been corrected after the fact, but at that point also all the money was stolen. And that was kind of interesting because in the end, I mean, when you progress from the final 4 to the final 2, you at least beat 2 guys, right? So it seems kind of fair that you get something for that. And because he was jackpotted, he would not get the points, that was clear, but that you would at least earn some money with it. That was kind of somewhere in our brain. So it was a bit tough to find out that was not the case at that stage. But again, like already mentioned, this has been corrected, and I think that's a fair deal as well.
I agree. I fully agree. That is more fair, but I believe one Ryan Murphy is sad somewhere in San Francisco right now, but yeah.
Well, I'm not sure what they did with with that, but that's not my problem.
No, 100%. And a question towards you, James. This is the exact inverse of a lineup towards what you had for the 50 backstroke. You had Kolesnikov and Flo swim the 50 backstroke, and here you have Rilov and Grievers. Why?
They both got jackpotted in the 50 backstroke. So
no, Flo didn't. Flo did great.
He finished 5th. So coming into this, backstroke was my skins. That was it. We were doing nothing other than backstroke. We had the short course world record holder, the long course world record holder. Evgeny's the short course world champion, but we just couldn't hook it up. Our guys on paper were the strongest in the field, but on form they just weren't there. So we were just trying anything. Like Flo and Klim went in relatively fresh, and they were just not with the program on that first meet. So we had to try anything, and we went with Evgeny and Matt just to see exactly what they could do, and unfortunately they didn't make the grade either. But had we had a big discussion in the final whether to go with backstroke or not, because we hadn't actually seen Klim in top form. We think he would have done a good job, but we just needed to avoid Ryan. Like, Ryan was just, I don't think I've ever seen him in such good shape. Physically, he had presence, and that, especially at that first meet, jackpotting pretty much everyone as he went through, was one of the most impressive things I've seen in the whole history of the ISL. So, later on when I had the choice of the skins, I wanted to avoid Ryan as much as I could.
Makes total sense. I mean, 70 points going the way of LA Current after these skins. That is a lot of points. It makes total sense you guys want to avoid it.
Actually, these 58 points acquired by Ryan Murphy is still the ISL record by a swimmer this season.
Yeah, an individual event, the number of points a single swimmer to score, 58 points by Murph, is an absolute record. You're right. But with this being said, thank you so much, David, Martin, James, Jonty, for making it to this match analysis. It was such an honor and a pleasure for me and Bruno. I know this dragged out for a little longer than you anticipated, but thank you so much for coming.
The duration was similar to the real competition.
I would correct you. I would correct you there because we covered 2 days.
Okay, we have 7 minutes.
Well,
I agree.
I mean,
we could throw an 800 freestyle.
Yeah, 100%. We can keep discussing every event if you wish to. I mean,
no.
We're here for you.
This is great. Now, my parting comment would be just how much we appreciate having an ISL. We appreciate your family for being such a key central part of this, and we know how good this was for the athletes. The athletes that competed in the ISL, I believe, will be better at the Olympic Games than the ones that didn't come, because they got something that others, I'm not sure they're going to get during this year, which is really intense competition, several in a row. So I think it was an amazing year for it, and I just hope this thing continues because the professional swimmer deserves at least this. And this is the first competition I've seen, first series of competitions I've seen to give the proper dignity and the proper funding and the proper support the way the ISL does. So good on you, and we're happy to be. I'm sure we're all happy to be a part of this.
Totally agree.
Thank you so much, David.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. And to everyone watching us, we will have a match analysis of match 2 in exactly a week. And to anyone who wants to join a podcast with the Energy Standard Swimmers, we will have a podcast tomorrow starting at 3 a.m. Central European Time.
3 a.m.
Yes, yes. Unfortunately, James' athletes are a little bit scattered around the world, and we had to find an optimal time. But yes,
quarantine, Martin. We've got 3 of them in quarantine that will be happy to join in for something to do.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ivan.
With this being said, thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see the viewers tomorrow and you guys for the next match analysis.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.